Oh my God, I was gonna go right into my speech. It feels so good to be on a stage. Oh wow, this is incredible. And you guys are beautiful. I'm so honored to be here. All right, so here goes. My name is Sorana Pascariu, and I live an extraordinary life. And by the end of this talk, I will teach you how to be extraordinary as well. But first, I want to take you back 5 years to a time where my life was anything but extraordinary. I was actually at rock bottom. For over a decade, I had battled my mother's mental illness, and I lost. I watched her sink into darkness. Then the 2 companies that I started went bankrupt. And finally, the man I was in love with left me. And about a month later, he showed up in tabloids with another woman. This was in Romania, my native country where I lived at the time. And it exposed me to a wave of scandalous gossip from my entire community. And I was so hurt, so humiliated, and so betrayed. Not just by this man that I deeply loved, but by life itself, because it had taken everything that mattered for me. My family, my work, my love story, my dignity, and finally my sanity. Because when I heard about the tabloids, I actually had a shock and had to be put on heavy medication. So I was on Xanax, I was on antidepressants, and sleeping pills. So for about a year and a half, I was a ghost. I hovered between life and death. And yet, in the midst of this despair, there was a part of me that desperately wanted to live. There was a part of me that believed, despite the countless doctors that had told me depression and PTSD are very hard to cure. You might have to be on medication for the rest of your life. That part of me believed I could heal. And it took me to therapy, and it made me grieve for everything I had lost. And it pushed me to find a solution. And one day I stumbled on this guided meditation by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And I started experimenting with it. I was so weak, I couldn't sit up to meditate. I had to lie down. But I stuck with it. I did it twice a day, every day. After 3 weeks, I was fully healed. All my symptoms, the suicidal thoughts, the pains in my chest, all of that depression and PTSD were completely gone. And I realized I had just experienced a miracle. I had healed myself using only my mind. And when something like that happens to you, you undergo a sort of paradigm shift. I started asking myself, if this is possible, what else is possible? And that actually became the guiding principle to my entire life. And I dedicated my life to studying the human psyche. I started researching and writing a book that's going to be published this year, actually. And I embarked upon the most incredible journey that I could have possibly imagined for myself. And I went to places in the human psyche that I didn't imagine existed. And I want to share one of these phenomenal experiences with you. It was with ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is a plant medicine that has been used in shamanic traditions in the Amazon and all over Central America for thousands of years. It's used for healing and for spiritual purposes. And it contains DMT. DMT is produced in our brains when we're born, when we die, and also when we meditate. And it's called a hallucinogen, but I actually prefer the term entheogen, which literally means becoming divine within. Because it's not just random hallucinations, it actually facilitates an encounter with the divine itself. And the way ayahuasca works is that you can set an intention of what you want to experience in that journey, but ultimately it will take you exactly where you need to go. And where it took me was in a past life that took place thousands of years before, somewhere in Central America in the jungle. And I remembered emotions. I remembered sensations. I experienced what it felt like to be connected to nature in that primal way in which most of humanity has lost right now. And I found myself grieving people that I didn't know I loved and lost. And I get asked, how do you know that it was you who experienced that life? I don't. And I don't think it's ultimately relevant because, well, one, clearly my consciousness was really attached to that story, so it needed to revisit it in order to release it. And at the same time, being able to experience a life that you're not living in your current body, what a privilege! What a mind-expanding experience. It was absolutely one of the most incredible things of my life. And in that same journey, I experienced something even more amazing that transformed my life forever. It was as if the source, that God, universe, however you want to call it, suddenly said, and now I will show you what I see. And it's as if my mind was illuminated from within. Just like this explosion went off in my mind. And I suddenly went from linear consciousness to exponential consciousness. And I felt and I saw infinity. I felt infinite love, infinite joy, infinite genius. I saw infinite dimensions, infinite universes. And I just sat there, on my little mattress in the cabin in the forest where we were. And I kept saying to myself, there will never be words to explain this. And there aren't, because language is a limited tool. But what I can do is I can actually show you something that represents kind of what I saw. And this is Sagrada Familia. It's a cathedral in Barcelona. It was built by Antonio Gaudí. He's one of the greatest architects of all times. And you can see just by looking at it that it was not built from ordinary consciousness. It's something completely different. And this is the interior. It is literally a forest made of stone. And it feels alive. It's as if divine spirit itself has been transmuted into stone. And you walk in it and you look up and you think, this is the most beautiful thing I have ever seen. And also, what was this guy smoking when he built it? I actually don't think he was smoking anything. It was the 1800s. And also, plant medicine, just like meditation, is only a tool for us to connect with what is already there, with the infinite genius of source. And there are people, the ones that we call geniuses, who are naturally more connected. They can tap into it more easily for their creative insight. And this actually brings me to the promise that I made to you at the beginning of my talk. And I have a confession to make. I lied to you. I cannot teach you to become extraordinary. Because you already are extraordinary. Just by virtue of being a creation of this universe, of this infinite genius, we're all made of the same stuff, of the same molecules. You are extraordinary. And if you're not aware of it, it's because your connection to that infinite genius has been severed. And why would that happen? There's many reasons. Beliefs. I'll give you an example. The doctors who believed they couldn't cure my depression. They believed they couldn't, so they had no access to a potential cure. I did. What I can do is I can tell you how to reestablish that connection. And there's two ways. One is mind expansion. If this is possible, what else is possible? And, it's literally just being aware that your mind is infinite. That's all you need to do. And the second one is actually trickier because it requires you to be willing to go and be with your shadow. And by shadow, I mean those places inside of yourself that you consider dark, that you've disowned, that you've suppressed, that you've denied. your wounds. And there's a trick to how we're created as humans. Our minds are infinite, but our bodies are not. Our bodies speak the language of emotions and our physical needs and of all those human indignities that we're trying to transcend with our thoughts. But we're actually not allowed to transcend. We cannot create what we envision until we're willing to go to those seemingly dark places. We cannot transcend what we're not willing to make peace with. The ayahuasca trip that I told you about, that was one of the nice ones. It was the ones that makes it on the travel brochure. I had a really bad one. There's bad trips, and one of them was so painful. I was shown all of that stuff that my subconscious was trying to suppress. It was just one of the worst nights of my life, just kind of, divinity showing me, you've been bad, and here's all the ways in which you're being irresponsible. One of the worst nights of my life, but also one of the best, because I couldn't ignore it anymore. I had to look at it. I was able to heal it, and my life transformed yet again. And one thing I didn't lie about is the fact that I do live an extraordinary life. And that started to happen the moment when I started to pay attention to those two principles. And it's not just me. I've seen it in my clients, I've seen it in my friends, and I've seen it in countless humans that I've encountered on this amazing journey of mine. And I do realize the magnitude of what I'm proposing. I'm not taking it lightly. It's kind of like proposing a two-step program for building a spaceship. It's like step 1, design a spaceship. Step 2, forge pieces and assemble spaceship. It's like, gee, yeah, thanks, that was helpful. This stuff is hard. But what's also hard? Depression is hard. Feeling hopeless is hard. Living in a universe that feels random and cold and indifferent, that's really hard. Which heart are you going to choose? And there's just one thing that I want you to walk away with today, and that is the knowledge that you already are the creators of your reality. And that if you bring awareness into that, there's absolutely no limit to how extraordinary your life can be. Thank you.